Morning, good morning. Hang on. Okay, we'll give a couple minutes for everybody to hop on. Morning, Harry.
Morning, Alex.
All right. We are in chapter 8. Finishing up chapter 8. Get situated. Mhm. Financial and spiritual. Okay. Let's see. Big crowd this morning. Just the two of us.
That's actually pretty cool. I mean, either way.
Oh, I got some more people joining.
Sweet.
Okay. All right. Good morning, Tina.
Good morning.
Give it a couple more minutes. So I was pretty inspired by one of my coaching clients. She was interviewed and she started quoting things in the course, which was pretty awesome. And I think I'm going to start with that lesson, which she quoted in.
All right, that sounds cool. You got a new setup now? It's been a few weeks for me.
Oh man, you haven't seen this? It's definitely been almost 3 weeks probably that I've had this set up. It's pretty now professional.
Yeah, it looks like it. That's awesome. Good for you.
Okay. So we'll start today's call with lesson 71 from the course. And this lesson is only God's plan for salvation will work. And it's interesting. Good morning, Eric. Good morning, Lenka. So it's interesting. Oh, wait. It's interesting that this is the lesson, and this lesson is the one that it comes back to me all the time because there's a part of me, and I know with people too, that we feel like we have to do things. Like we have to be the ones in control to make the change in the world, be the change that you want to see in the world. You want to be the change. You don't have to do the change. Morning, Eric. And so lesson 71 is only God's plan for salvation will work. And it's really speaking into trusting into this intelligence in the world. And every day I struggle with that because at least or I have some sort of conflict and struggle with it. Like I do a lot of real estate deals and I speak to a lot of people on a daily basis. And a part of me is like, okay, well, I got to put in all this work, right, to create the life that I want to live. And the course actually says it's really the opposite of that. You're just here to do God's work. And I remember and so sometimes I'll think to myself like, okay, this is not the source of my income. And when I remember that, I remember that God is always going to provide, and God's always got my back. If I look back in the rest of my life, I mean, looking back in my life, there really isn't a point where I wasn't already, protected. It seems like at points in our lives where we feel like we've been abandoned, right? Like, oh my God, it's the struggle is real. Whether it's, and a lot of times it starts with financial. This is why I teach financial things. I teach financial literacy. I teach investing. I teach anything that really has to do with money, because money is the fastest way for us to actually, if we look at it honestly, and money is the fastest place to see what illusions we are holding real. When I say illusions, I mean all the worldly things that we give power to over us. And money is the fastest way for us to see that. So that's why I teach that. That's just the surface level of my work. And there's a couple things that I remember from the course, and really, if I think about what I struggle with and what is important to me in my life, and when I'm really connected and aware of that, I know that this is the work that's set out for me. And this is why so many of us, we teach the things that we most want to learn. And we didn't put ourselves here. We didn't put these thoughts here. We didn't decide that this was the thing that was important for us. It's just whatever we're going through in life. So naturally we teach it because there's more conviction behind it when we are living it. So some of us might be, might be doing different types of work. Your ministry, and the course also says that there's nothing that you haven't done, or there's no parts of you that the Holy Spirit cannot use for the purposes of healing the world. That means everything that you've been through, all parts of your story designed as part of the healing of the whole. There is no parts of you that no past, no lessons that happened by accident. You are the perfect teacher for somebody. I know that probably if somebody's struggling with drug addictions, alcoholic addiction, probably the best person to serve that person is somebody that's been through it, been through the struggle. So every one of us has a message. So the first thing is that we didn't write the message. You have just been given perfectly the tools, the situations, the people that walked into your life. You have been given the tools, all these tools to serve you so that you can serve your brothers. So you didn't write this message. The second thing is that the message that you give is the one that you receive. So you receive this message and you're given it. You can't help but be a teacher. Everything that we are, whatever beliefs we have, we can't help but extend that and to teach others. We're always teaching others who we are and what we believe is true for ourselves. So this is why this type of, for me, every week being able to do this twice, whether there's an audience or not, and I've been super blessed that every week there has been an audience. The course, in this world, we say when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. But the course says when the teacher is ready, the students will appear. Because we are really all just students of this work. To be a student of the course, you merely just say, you merely are just studying the course. And there's no end to that. There's no end to, if I finish the course one time, now I got it. I can literally every single day pick up the course, read. I can read the same chapter over and over again, and it'll continue to be a reminder. So teaching the course is I teach it because it's the thing that I want to learn. And the third thing about that is you can't actually receive the message without giving it away. This is a part that a lot of us, a lot of people in the world haven't fully grasped yet. You haven't let it gone through you by giving it away. You haven't let your lesson hook in yet. There's a lot of personal resistances, limiting beliefs that holds us back from doing the work that we're supposed to do, sharing the message that we want to share deep inside our hearts. So we'll begin. I guess we already begun, but we'll begin with lesson 71, and I will read. Only God's plan for salvation will work. You may not realize that the ego has set up a plan for salvation in the opposite direction to God's. It is this plan in which you believe. Since it is the opposite of God's, you also believe that to accept God's plan in place of the ego's is to be damned. This sounds preposterous, of course. Yet after we have considered what is the ego's plan, perhaps you will realize that however preposterous it may be, you do believe in it. The ego's plan for salvation centers around holding grievances. It maintains that if someone else spoke or acted differently, if some external circumstance or events were to change, you would be saved. Thus, the source of salvation is constantly perceived as outside of yourself. Each grievance you hold is a declaration and an assertion in which you believe that says, if this were different, I would be saved. The change of mind necessary for salvation is thus demanded of everyone and everything except yourself. You see, the ego makes an exception for yourself all the time. The role assigned to your own in this plan then is simply to determine what other than itself must change if you are to be saved. According to this insane plan, any perceived source of salvation is acceptable, provided that it will not work. This ensures that fruitless search will continue, for the illusion persists that although this hope has always failed, there is still grounds for hope in other places and in other things. Another person will yet serve better. Another situation will yet offer success. Such is the ego's plan for salvation. Surely you can see how in this strict accord with the ego's basic doctrine, seek but do not find. For what could be more surely guarantee that you will not find salvation than to channelize all your efforts in searching for it where it is not? God's plan for salvation works simply because by following his direction, you seek for salvation where it is. But if you are to succeed as God promises you will, you must be willing to seek there only. Otherwise, your purpose is divided and you will attempt to follow two plans for salvation that are diametrically opposed in all ways. The result can only bring confusion, misery, and a deep sense of failure and despair. So the ego has you seek for salvation where it will never be found. It is always somewhere outside of you. If only this situation were different, if only this person were different, then I would be saved. And how many times throughout the day do we put our salvation outside of us? I think to myself, if only these bills were paid on time, if only my wife called this company, then there's so much blame that goes around. If only my business partners did things this way, if they only listened to me about this, if the government only did this, if parents only did this, then I would be saved. See how the ego just keeps searching, and this is the ego's model: seek but do not find. And we just keep going. We keep going. And this is why the course right here says it may sound preposterous that you want to follow the ego's plan and to accept God's plan is to be in opposed to what you believe salvation really is. So you believe salvation comes with what the ego is teaching. And there's two forms of thoughts that are diametrically opposite: love and fear. Fear being the lessons and taught by the ego, and love being taught by the Holy Spirit. And so for me, every day, I do think about this, actually. I put myself in a position to be teaching something, to be facilitating something. And every single time this thought crosses my mind for a second, who am I to teach it? Who am I to teach this? Who am I to be speaking about this? It seems like I'm not an expert here. Like when it comes to the course, I don't know who am I. If I listen to Marianne Williamson speak, or if I listen to my big brother Chris speak about the course, and if I compare myself to it and to them, of course I'm going to say, who am I to do it? I teach financial literacy. I teach multifamily investing. I teach real estate investing. And if I look at Grant Cardone, I look at some of my other mentors, and I look at people that are doing bigger and better, and I think to myself, who am I to do it? So for a second, every single time that I'm about to start a call, I have the thought, who am I to teach it? And then I remember the teachings of the course, that I'm not here to be perfect. I am I'm only here to demonstrate love. That's the work that I'm doing. See, there's on the worldly level, what I'm doing produces some sort of monetary income. On a cosmic, universal, heavenly level, all I'm doing is doing God's work. I am using this as a vehicle for me to spread what? What am I the minister of? What is my ministry? And so and every single time I remember that, I'm only here to demonstrate love, to teach love. In every situation, can I bring more love into people's lives? Into situations where maybe there's a lot of conflict. Can I remain the rock or the mountain in that place? And it's a practice for me. See, I teach it because I want to learn it. It will not hook in. It will not sink in unless I give it away. I didn't write this message. I didn't create my life and have the people that walked into my life the way it did. I didn't have all the situations and the circumstances, my father passing away and and then moving to America and all this stuff, doing real estate. Like I always, the one thing that I always think is really fascinating is how many doctors there are in this world. Like it seems like no matter where in the world, there's always somebody that's like, my work is to be a doctor. Like in the United States, doctors do get paid more, but I was just talking to somebody about in Cuba, doctors make less money than the bartender. Or when Fidel was in place. And still people choose that that's the path. So who put that message there? It's not them. They didn't choose it. They're just merely following. So the message you give is also the one that you receive. So the message that I'm giving out constantly is I'm receiving it. And in order for me to actually receive it, truly receive it, I have to give it away. And so my work everywhere is, I'm reminded, yes, so to teach is to learn. My work is, can I bring more love to the space? that people are not my source of income, that God is still the source. So continuing this lesson, where am I? Okay. How can you escape this? So this sense that everything you do is failing. I mean, we get to a point in our lives where we feel like, what is happening? Why are things happening the way it's doing? And it's almost like we're a victim to all the things in our lives, and we just get so tired and so exhausted that just keeps repeating itself. So how do we escape all this? Very simply, the idea for today is the answer. Only God's plan for salvation will work. It is not your plan that will work, but only God's plan for salvation will work. A seed turns into a plant that produces fruits. It just does. An embryo turns into life. And the only difference between you right now and an embryo turning into life and the seed turning into a plant is that somehow you feel like you have control, and you decided to make decisions and to think differently. That's the only thing. But whatever is happening, with or without your control, there's a universal cosmic intelligence. God is already, everything is already working perfectly. You need not interfere with your own judgments about things. You simply figure out how you can extend what you were made to do so that you can recognize who it is that you really are. How do we fit into this world? And the sooner you realize who you really are, the sooner you will deliver the message that you're supposed to deliver. So, again, the idea for today is the answer to this restlessness, this anxiety. Only God's plan for salvation will work. There can be no real conflict about this because there's no possible alternative to God's plan that will save you. His is the only plan that is certain in its outcome. His is the only plan that must succeed. So if you feel uncomfortable with me saying God, or you want to use a different word, by all means use it. Let us practice recognizing this certainty today, and let us rejoice that there is an answer to what seems to be a conflict with no resolution possible. All things are possible to God. Salvation must be yours because of his plan, which cannot fail. It is always happening. The seed will always turn into a tree, turn into a plant, and be what it will be. And you will also. There is no changing that. It's only a matter of how fast can we get to that alignment ourselves. Can we come to a place of surrender and acceptance and trust that this is it? I am simply an extension of light and love, of God's will for us. Sooner I accept that, the sooner I find that for in my own life. So we begin with 2 longer practice periods for today by thinking about today's idea and realizing that it contains 2 parts, each making equal contribution to the whole. God's plan for your salvation will work, and other plans will not. So think about that today. That's the first step, is that it is God's plan that's going to work, not yours. So you got to align yourself to it. Things that are happening in your life are happening for a reason so that you may use it at some point for the purposes of healing. There's no other alternative. God's plan will work. You have the right people in your life, the right situations, the circumstances happening to you. That's the first part. The second part, do not allow yourself to become depressed or angry at this second part. It is inherent in the first. It is inherent in the first. And in the first, your full release from all your own insane attempts and mad proposals will free yourself. They have led to depression and anger, but God's plan will succeed. It will lead to the release and joy. Remembering this, let us devote the remainder of the extended practice period by asking God to reveal his plan to us, asking him very specifically, what would you have me do? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say, and to whom? We got to give up. We give it all up. Where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say, and to whom? See, in our own hands, it's kind of stressful. We make up all the other stuff. We make up who am I to teach? Who am I to teach? Who am I to say this? Who am I to get in the way of what's going on? But you merely just stop in that moment. It's not my plan that will work. It's God's plan that's going to work. So in this moment, what would you have me do? Where would you have me go? See, we don't even ever ask that question. We just think we know best. It's a practice. It's a muscle that we get to practice. What would you have me say, and to whom? Who's going to be on the call today? Who will be co-delivering this message of love? Give him full charge of the rest of the practice period and let him tell you what needs to be done by you in his plan for your salvation. He will answer in proportion to your willingness to hear his voice. Refuse not to hear. The very fact that you are doing this, the exercise proves that you have some willingness to listen. So the fact that you guys are even here listening and watching, you're already 50% of the way there. Maybe even more. There's a willingness to even step into something, to be reminded. This is enough to establish your claim to God's answer. In the shorter practice periods, tell yourself often that God's plan for salvation and only his will work. Be alert to all temptation to hold grievances today and respond to them with this form of today's idea. Holding grievances is the opposite of God's plan for salvation, and only his plan will work. So in your short period, just when you're going around throughout the day, maybe see what I used to do, and I probably should start doing this again, is I have this timer that goes off every 30 minutes. This was when I was working for a gratitude training, and we were super deep in the study of the course all the time. I would have an alarm go off every 30 minutes. And every 30 minutes, the lesson of the day, I would just... Actually, there's an app that I used. It's called ACIM Remind. I still use it. Look, it's not an app that has a little cloud next to it. That means I must click into it often enough. But I don't use the alarm part. But the alarm part, like every 30 minutes or every hour or every 2 hours, it would ring and you would be reminded, okay, here's today's lesson again. So today's lesson, 71. Holding grievances is the opposite of God's plan for salvation, and only his plan will work. So don't hold any grievances today. There will be moments where you will feel like, oh, something's got me, but don't give it more energy than it really needs. It's like that. I read a little quote or something online, and it said that if you had $80,000 and somebody took $10 from you, would you be willing to risk all $80,000 to go get your $10 back? Or would you just leave it and chalk it up for a loss, and you wouldn't even pay much attention to it? It's the same thing when something has you and it's only taken a couple seconds for it to happen. Would you give up the rest of your time in the day to lose peace to that thing? So two things. The number one thing is that only God's plan for salvation will work. There's a universal intelligence that is happening, and that will work. You don't need to interfere with it. All things are working out perfect, no matter what you think about it. You can think, oh man, the world is doomed. plastic is going to destroy our planet and our humanity and the human race, or a nuclear bomb. We got to stop doing things with military research and working with nuclear bombs, all that stuff. Everything, you just give it over to God. And your ministry work is your life, is the people in around you. You don't need to go further out to try and save the world. You save the world by just saving yourself inside your community. Try to remember today's ideas 6 or 7 times an hour. There could be no better way to spend half minute or less than to remember the source of your salvation and see it where it is. 6 or 7 times an hour. Every 10 minutes. Can you have an alarm just go bing every 10 minutes and remember that only God's salvation will work, that I need to hold no grievances today, that what would you have me do? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say, and to whom? Just completely surrender today, giving it all over. And where did we leave off last week? We left off at the gift of freedom in chapter 8. But I will open it up now after that opening for anyone to ask questions, share anything. Anybody want to, whatever's coming up? Good place, good time to do it. Okay, let's see. See what we got in some chats. I'm not enjoying the ride. What ride? The ego's ride? Yeah, it's not very enjoyable. It's very insane that we follow the ego's ride, which is the ride itself. The ride itself is not going to give you the salvation that you're looking for. That's the ego's plan. You're looking towards everywhere besides where it can be found, which is inside you. Donna, hello. Go for it.
Good morning. So, I'm going to ask a question about the definition of salvation, because that's something I really grew up with.
Yeah.
So, is it just meaning going back to God, or is there some other thing?
Salvation is literally where you will find joy. Where do you find joy? Where do you find peace? Where do you find your connection to source? To the source. We have such a resistance to being connected to source, to speaking through source, to even let ourselves be in joy, be inspired in spirit. So when we say salvation, it's literally a reminder of where joy is. So the Course says that how do you know if you are doing God's work? If you have joy in it. If you have joy in doing it, you are doing it. And so salvation meaning if I look towards something outside of me to find joy, it will always fail. That my salvation is not there. That's not going to save me. If I feel very anxious, if I'm not enjoying the ride, nothing outside will save me. No circumstance, no people, no situations changing, it will save me. It may bring temporary relief, but ultimately leading us to more pain and more suffering as we give it away to outside. So all your salvation lies within. And this is where the Course always points to look, is to look inside. to look inside and find the connection and find the true identity of who you are. And when you start operating from that space of who you are, working, spirit working through you, rather than you trying to figure it out on your own. When you try to figure it out on your own, there's limited energy resource, so to say. Like you run out. Like people will exhaust you, situations will exhaust you. But if you are simply just a channel, a clear channel for work to be done through you, you will never get exhausted. Like I'm doing the things that I'm doing because I keep reminding myself that it's not about being right. It's not about teaching people how to do multifamily or investing or real estate or business or any of that, or even teaching the course itself. It's about how can I, in the practice of doing it, remember that I am serving people. I am here to add more love to the space, add more trust to the space. It's not even about the information I'm delivering. The information I'm delivering it because I want to learn it. And it's no different than remembering where my salvation lies. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
thanks. And I do appreciate this lesson. 71.
Yeah, lesson 71 in the course.
Spent my whole life, in the wrong direction. So hearing this is great. Thank you.
We are all doing that every day, and that's why the course says 5 or 6 times in an hour. Can you do it? And if you just simply did that one time, it could open up. I don't know what it will open up, but it's part of the lessons. I've done it before. I've been so strict into just so regimented in the way that I did the lessons before. Now I'm kind of just cruising through it. And but yeah, it's drilled into my head always that God's work is what's happening. It's not me. I don't need to interfere. And I do interfere all the time. I do go into judgment all the time. I just notice it much quicker and bring myself back to, my bad, I did it again. Oops, I did it again. That I decide that I need to interfere. And then I put I put my joy inside things that it's not there.
Right, especially today being 9/11, right?
Right. So it is 9/11. Okay, yes. So it's super early in the morning. I totally didn't even know what day it is. But yes, being that it's 9/11, I actually remember being in school when all this when it happened. And I was in high school and multiple people in the same room as me. Okay, I remember because I was a pretty angry kid in high school, but multiple people in the same room that we were watching had parents in the building. They knew their parents were in there. And I still remember just like, shit, that's just terrible. And there's anger that fills. There's things that we do because we continuously when we're hurt and when we feel like life is not fair and when we feel like we need to take up arms against something, we need to retaliate against something, we end up hurting others. A projection of our anger and our fear doesn't get you what you really want. This is again the salvation of, I don't know who's really behind all of it. I was a big conspiracy theorist for a while too, but whoever is behind it obviously thought that the better path was to hurt a lot of people. And now thinking about it, because I actually have not thought about this at all on any 9/11s, because I feel like maybe on somewhere I suppressed it. But somebody felt that their salvation would lie in flying a plane into a building, and then somehow, I don't even know how, but the buildings just came crashing down, right? They're designed not to do that, but somehow they all just came crashing down. But whoever was behind all of it, whoever is behind it, thought that a projection of their own insecure guilt, hurts, whatever it is projected out, that would give them satisfaction. And I'm sure whoever is behind it is not finding any of the satisfaction that they thought they were going to have. They're probably still in turmoil about where the salvation of their own joy and happiness lies. So, yeah, that is a place that we definitely get to forgive. We get to forgive our brothers, sisters that did it, that's behind it. We get to forgive ourselves for judging others. I know that, man, like the Pakistani people, actually anybody that was from that region, even Indians and anybody wearing a turban or have a beard, like started to get harassed. Like it created such big division in this world. So we get to forgive all of that, including any parts of our participation, whether we took one side or the other. And we get to let all that go. Forgiveness is the way out. Nothing from our past should be brought into this moment besides loving thoughts. Loving memories and loving thoughts can serve this moment, but all the other stuff that we perceived back then does not serve this moment. Our childhood didn't even happen the way we thought it did. That's what Marianne Williamson said, and I like it, and I'm going with it. Yeah. So, sending lots of love and to all the people that are affected by it. And I'm sure there's still so many people that think of today in a way that I don't think about it. So just sending some love and some peace to their hearts today. Okay. So interesting, because we live in America, the land of the free. Maybe. We are all free. We can all choose to be free. No one can enslave us but ourselves. But the section we're going to be reading today is the gift of freedom. Before I start, anyone else want to share or ask anything else? You can type it, you can ask it. If not, we're going to get started on this section. So if you're just tuning in, or if you missed the beginning parts, we did lesson 71 in the course. And the steps for today is, first, God's will, God's plan is the only salvation for the world. Okay, God's plan works, not mine. The second, in a longer period, is to say, what would you have me do? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say? And to whom? It's a willingness to give that up, and it's a practice all day. And then the other shorter period is that love holds no grievances. I will hold no grievances today. Only God's plan will work. My participation in it does nothing. My participation, my judgment, my attack, actually nothing is happening. It only makes me feel smaller and the people around me feel smaller, and all I'm doing is projecting my fears out there. So let me remember, it's not my game plan. My judgment will do nothing. God's plan will work. Go ahead, Harry. Go for it, brother.
Hey guys, hey, so Yeah, I do have a question. So something that I've been doing lately is just as I'm driving or working, I've been noticing that within my mind, right, this big bad culprit called the ego that I thought once was, real big and bad or whatever. I've noticed that within it, it's just my mind is a tool, and that I've organized beliefs or ideas or interpreted things in certain ways over the years, and I've stored them away and operated off of them. And so as each one is coming up, I'm clearing it, giving it to the Holy Spirit, and it's giving me a new perspective. And my question behind that is there an end to that? Right? And my following with it is that I see that each one I've organized, I've made conclusions of, I've chosen that misinformation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Probably hear a little distaste in my voice. And that's okay. And gentleness. And there must be an end. There must be so many. There must be just, or not must be, but I'm thinking anyways that there's an amount that I put away. There must be a number to it. Or I'm just gonna say it just like that. There must be a number to it. That's the way it's coming out. What do you think?
Well, so there's really only one. You think there's a lot of numbers of things to let go of and forgive, but there's only one. And the only one is that somehow we are separate from our source. That somehow we are separate from each other and from God. Every problem and every thought that you think you're letting go of and clearing and forgiving, they're different forms of the same thing. So it could be the ego again seeking and not finding the solution, because you will have an unlimited amount of those. But can you live from a place that they're all just the same, different forms of the same thing? Let me forgive the one thing. What is the one problem that I have? Is our disconnection from source. Is our communication channel to our Father, is what the Course says. So the practice of it is good, but it's kind of like asking, how many dreams will we have? We sleep every night. Will the dreams just end? Will I not have any more dreams? Will I not be invested into any more illusions? Right?
Yeah.
But you can live, but if you live understanding that a dream is a dream, you can make the dream a happy dream. That's why the Course points to all the worldly things here. When you recognize that they're illusions and your salvation is not in those things, you will not find joy and love and peace and all that in things outside of you. When you recognize an illusion for an illusion, you can live happy, because you take the power back from it. It's an illusion. And it's not that it's not whether something exists or not. It's whether something has power over you or not. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's pretty cool, actually. I didn't even realize my relationship with illusions.
Yeah.
So I had attempted to do that before, going into plant medicine ceremonies, all this was to do it all at once, just like, boom. It seems like it's more like participatory and active. It's like each step I take or activity that I'm into, it's like clearing up like my relationship with illusion.
It is.
And so, but you know what I mean? They're not, they're illusion. It's like, it's okay, whatever, it's illusion.
So here's the thing too, and we'll go even a little bit deeper than that, is that even the Holy Spirit is an illusion. Even forgiveness is an illusion. Because in heaven, they are not needed. These tools are not needed. They were tools given to you in a dream. As a part of a dream, it is still the dream itself. But it is used to bring us to the right mind, to prepare us to be ready to wake up. But an illusion is still an illusion. See, because we can manipulate the idea of Holy Spirit as well. See what I'm saying? So the real question is, only thing you have to look is, where what's robbing me of my peace? What's robbing me of my peace? And if I'm not at peace, then I must be giving into the dream. I must be giving into an illusion. Am I also participating in peace? See, part of what our ministry and all of our messages in the world is also what I realize, what I come to self-realization of, I got to share with my brothers. I want to bring them there. And you always will. There is no escaping from it. If you are hurt and you are, you are judgmental and you are damning everything, you will bring other people to it. Or you will try. If you decide that you're going to be a ministry of love and of God, you will do that around you too. You will teach it no matter what. So, one of the things about the dream, I read somewhere that if you're dreaming and you're like semi-awake and you're semi-conscious of your dream, look down at your hands. And I've been trying to do that. But what ended up happening, okay, instead of me actually looking down on my hands, is I've been like lucid dreaming, sleep talking. So I'm like half awake, half not, but I really don't ever remember it. But Love's always like, she wants to record it, but she's also like half asleep, and she just laughs, and it's just funny. Like the conversation probably doesn't even really make any sense, but I am partially awake, and I realize a dream is a dream, So now when you're doing all this work, if you keep seeking in the same place, looking for this no ending amounts of things to clear and let go, you got to clear what's behind it. Go even deeper. Why would they even all be here? Can they all just be categorized into one thing? And yes, the one thing is your disconnection from your source, disconnection from God.
Right, but what I've found is that, like, even trying to look ahead, like I'll start like going, like it's like the mind, instead of using it as a tool, it's been used as an identity throughout my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so now it's like a habit. It's like I'm doing it and just speaking from me, just for me, from spirit.
Yeah, totally.
It's really interesting. I'm trying to. I feel like maybe we're bringing them into like all together at one point. Like, my mind, my body. It's like I know I'm the spirit. I feel that.
Yeah.
I can feel me, and I also feel all the other tools that I'm using to communicate in this world.
Good.
Without ego, how are we talking? Or I guess we just talk it's true.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the other things that you did mention was something about plant medicines, and I do believe that if you studied the course, okay, well, this is my own projection, my own belief. When you study the course long enough, it goes hand in hand with the medicine itself. Because really the medicine is trying to show you what is real and what is not. But you will fight it. You will be fighting it. So actually, people talk about when you're in plant medicine ceremonies or you come out of it, how do you integrate what you've learned there into your life? But see, my thing is, how do I integrate in the ceremony what I've learned in my life, what I've been practicing in my life? Because you'll have a bodily, spiritly experience of what it is that you've learned. Either you're going to have a battle and it won't be a very enjoyable experience because you're holding on to the things and you're fighting it. So you could have bad experiences, well, not bad healing experiences either way, but you could have a challenging one. Yeah. 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 So I'm a big, I am a big advocate for plant medicines when people are ready, when people are called. I'm not an advocate really of people just doing it recreationally. You know, it's not like just for fun. I was sitting I was at a party, or I don't even know if it's a party, but it's a little family gathering at my friend's place. And they're just like, yeah, you know, I'm just like having such an awesome time, just chilling, bro. I'm just gonna take a handful of mushrooms tonight. And I'm like, dude, you know, like, first of all, dangerous. Um, Even the story they share from the last time that it happened, that they took it, I was just like, it's just dangerous. Someone's foot got ran over by a car. You know, like, just the story is just insane. It's way worse than people drinking if you're just recreationally doing it and running around out in the streets, you know? So setting intentions, these things, I do believe it just helps. It helps the direction that you take your journey on, you know? So anyways, I do believe that the course and plant medicines work very well together. When I was in Peru, um, definitely, like, while I was sitting in ayahuasca ceremonies, I was thinking about the course a lot. You know, I was having actual experiences of healing, you know, so I know it's real. And yeah,
I studied, sometimes I studied the course, and actually it's really psychedelic. It's kind of cool.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah, I started like, what I mean by psychedelic, you know, my perspective
mhm.
is changing so much that I'm taking in like shapes and sounds and everything differently, colors. It's really neat.
Yeah. So, because of my practice with the course so much, and so I don't have resistances, I'm like a very clear channel most of the times. When I'm on medicine, I'm even more clear. So, I'm actually not much different than I am right now, like in clarity and in like being able to communicate, being able to function, whether it be ayahuasca or uh, San Pedro or mushrooms or whatever it is, any of those, it heightens my senses. It gets me more connected for sure, but I'm not much different at all from how I am. And people that have sat in ceremonies
Right.
can definitely vouch for that.
That's so, it's so cool that you say that. You know, I was so one of them. I do moving cross country. I'm back on the truck again. Driving cross country, moving people. One of my customers I was talking to yesterday. She's a biologist, and she has a bachelor in psychiatry. And at first, she calls me. It seems like she's just calling me to see my whereabouts because she's just thinking about her things and moving, and that her things aren't there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just answering her and just staying open to what this conversation is leading to. Because obviously, she's calling me for a reason. We're on this conversation. And so we start going in, and she starts complaining to me about her ex-husband.
Mm-hmm.
And her ex-husband suffered with narcissistic personality disorder, which is something that my father suffered from, that I've suffered from, that my brother suffered from, and eventually that my father took his own life from last year. And when she was telling me about this, I was just sitting here thinking, I'm like, man. And the whole time, like, I just wanted to tell her, I'm like, you know, you just gotta go to source. Like, you're not upset with him, like, and you know, all these different things that I'm learning, and I was like filling my mind up with it. And little did I know, like, she started asking me I started sharing with her a little bit about my experience with this disorder and about healing from it myself, about some of the experiences that my father's had with it. And all of a sudden, there's just like this something to feel there that I'm afraid to feel. And I thought this conversation was about her, and it was actually about me. And she was reminding me to feel those things that I'm hiding away from, that I've experienced and been a part of, and using the tools of the ego to spread that message of ego for so long. And I had hid it away because I didn't want to face it and look at it.
Yeah.
And yeah, after that, I just pulled over, dude. I pulled over to the side of the road, and I actually opened up Sacred Space and dove into almost like a mushroom trip with just a joint, of cannabis.
Yeah, well, all plants are plants.
4 hour. It was so cool. I think there's like a. Anyways, I know that there's a stigma about it, so I hope that it breaks up for for some people or not. But medicines are like, yeah, they're really powerful. And actually, it took me into all ceremonies that I ever had. And coming out of this one, I remember I was integrating. I had an integration dinner after 4 hours, right? Normally ceremonies are all night. Next thing the integration, and it feels like I'm going back to regular life. Except I learned in this integration that going back to regular life was just choosing to go again. That's all that I was doing in the past.
Yeah.
Was choosing to operate out of ego. Is what I should say.
Mm-hmm.
Really mean, dude.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing up about medicines in the course because they really are hand in hand.
Yeah, of course.
When used responsibly and proper, there's a proper way to use them, and they're a lot more beneficial. And going back to it, I had Alex, I had been smoking cannabis for I don't know how long, for months before this, and using it as a tool to escape. And just by setting the intention and recognizing the power that it is, you know, and using it in that way, it made that much of a difference. I smoke it every day.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. So setting those intentions. Yeah, the intentions only matter because it brings a certain level of awareness to your mind, you know. So when you're going into it, it gives a direction. But what you were sharing, all the things that happened to you in your life, you know, dealing with narcissism and your father taking his life that way, and it really, and having that conversation with this person, it's really showing you, well, going back into full circle about that, all of us demonstrate what it is that's true for us, and also all things can be used for the purposes of healing. And there are people that will only hear what you say. You know, Jesus could walk into the room and they wouldn't be able to, and it wouldn't impact them the way that you can. And each one of us has ministry work. Find your ministry work. What is it that brings you joy? Do more of it. Share more of it. Find your work. Find your message. And then deliver it. When the teacher is ready, the students will come. The students will show up. We are all teachers. But when will you be ready? When will you recognize that you are a teacher? That's I guess that's the message of the day from me. Okay. Not from me, from God. Through me. Okay, so let's start section 8. Anybody else want to ask anything? I always like to give people the opportunity to share. Even if we don't get to reading, it's fine. Okay, real quick. So the reason why I also love the course so much is that the course says you return home in pairs. You do this work in pairs with others. See, so much of everything else that I understood growing up is that we do the work ourselves, and then we go and we meditate and we come to self-realization or enlightenment ourselves. Okay? Don't worry about nobody else. Just do in a cave, you know, come to that place. Very masculine, very Eastern also. Like, and so this, who would have thought the thing I resisted the most? God, Holy Spirit, Jesus, these types of words. Who would have thought that this is where I find my salvation? Actually, it's not this I find my salvation, but this is where it reminds me of where to find my salvation and doing this work with others. See, there's so many times people are like, well, it's them, it's not me. I'm totally cool with the situation. They're the ones that lost their peace. Well, if you are participating in peace being lost, it is you too. If you recognize that you are participating and you created and you are part of somebody else having conflict about an issue, or they feel attacked because you said something, you are part of that problem. Even if you think that you're like, oh yeah, it's not me. It's not me, but the fact that you can recognize that they are in conflict with you means that you are part of it. Means there's healing work to be done there. There's forgiveness work to be done. Okay. So, section 4 of chapter 8, the journey back, is the gift of freedom. If God's will for you is complete peace and joy, unless you experience only this, you must be refusing to acknowledge his will. See, only this. See, we think we can take one, we can learn two things. We think our minds can be allegiant to both teachers, the ego and the Holy Spirit. But you cannot. This is why we get confused, because we think we can learn both. You cannot. The recognition of one is at the expense of the other. And so from the ego space, that's a very scary thought, because that means you must sacrifice. And God's saying that your joy, your peace, your love requires no sacrifice. Giving up an illusion is not giving up anything at all. You're giving up nothing for everything. You're giving up something in the dream for something real. What's real can never be threatened. What's unreal never existed. Herein lies the peace of God. So we all believe in love, right? We all recognize love. This is, at least it's a concept that's floating out there. But we don't believe in love only. We believe in conditional love. We want to believe in love only, but do we behave in alignment to that? That's for each one of us to look at. So his will does not vacillate, being changeless forever. See, our ideas and our thoughts vacillate back and forth. Our beliefs vacillate. When you are at peace, it can only be because you do not believe you are in him. When you are not at peace, it can only be because you do not believe you are him. Yet, he is in all. And I'm actually going to just change he today for she. Just for shits and giggles. Her peace is complete. And you must be included in it. Her laws govern you because they govern everything. You cannot exempt yourself from her laws, although you can disobey them. Yet if you do, and only if you do, you will feel lonely and helpless because you're denying yourself everything. I am as a light into a world that does deny itself everything. It does simply by disassociating itself from everything. It is therefore an illusion of isolation, maintained by fear of the same loneliness that is its illusion. I said that I am with you always, even unto the end of the world. That is why I am the light of the world. If I am with you in the loneliness of the world, the loneliness is gone. This is our brother Jesus, our sister Jesus talking to us. You cannot maintain the illusion of loneliness if you are not alone. My purpose then is still to overcome the world. I do not attack it, but my light must dispel it because of what it is. Light does not attack darkness, but it does shine it away. If the light becomes ours, and you cannot abide in darkness any more than darkness can abide wherever you go. The remembrance of me is the remembrance of yourself and of her who sent me to you. You were in darkness until God's will was done completely by any part of the sonship. When this was done, it was perfectly accomplished by all. How else would it be perfectly accomplished? My mission was simply to unite the will of the sonship with the will of the Father by being aware of the Father's will myself. Oh, forgot. I'm going to say mother now. This is the awareness I came to give you. And your problem is accepting it is a problem of this world. Dispelling it is salvation. And in this sense, I am the salvation of the world. The world must therefore despise and reject me because the world is a belief that love is impossible. If you will accept the fact that I am with you, you are denying the world of and accepting God. My will is hers, and your decision to hear me is the decision to hear her voice and to abide in her will. As God sent me, so will I send you to others, and I will go to them with you so we can teach them peace and union. Do you not think the world needs peace as much as you do? Do you not want to give the world as much as you want to receive it? For unless you do, you will not receive it. If you want to have it of me, you must give it. Welcome, welcome. Healing does not come from anyone else. You must accept guidance from within. The guidance must be what you want, or it will be meaningless to you. That is why healing is a collaborative venture. I can tell you what to do, but you must collaborate by believing that I know what you should do. Only then will your mind choose to follow me. Without this choice, you cannot be healed because you would have decided against healing. And this rejection of my decision for you makes healing impossible. Healing reflects our joint will. This is obvious when you consider what healing is for. Healing is the way in which the separation is overcome. So, Harry, this is what we're talking about when we're talking about healing. When we're healing, we're only healing the idea that separation exists. That myself and the mother, God, is separate. The decision to unite must be unequivocal, or the mind itself is divided and not whole. Your mind is the means by which you determine your own condition, because mind is the mechanism of decision. So remember, again, the vision of one world costs you the vision of the other. You cannot be allegiant to both heaven and hell. All right, so you cannot follow two teachers. And the fact that you think you can follow two teachers is the reason why we are conflicted, that we don't have peace in all areas of our lives. Because we think somehow at one end, God is my salvation. And then on the other end, having money is my salvation. Having a nice car is my salvation. Having my wife cook me food is my salvation. Have this, have that. Situations and people are never your salvation. They will always lead you back down to darkness and back to the ego. So you have to be vigilant in choosing heaven every moment. And it never stops. As long as we are in a body, it will continue to happen, but you can change your relationship to it happening. You can be completely at peace with losing your peace. And then just laugh at it. You can be at peace with yourself judging others and just laughing at yourself. Catching it without judgment, without shaming, without bad and wronging yourself. That's the way to even heal shaming, that you would even shame and judge others. You forgive yourself. So my decision cannot overcome yours because yours is as powerful as mine. If it were not so, the sons of God would be unequal. All things possible through our joint decision, but mine alone cannot help you. Your will is as free as mine, and God herself, keep forgetting I'm changing it to her today, just to have fun with it, would not go against it. I cannot will what God does not will. I can offer my strength to make yours invincible, but I cannot oppose your decision without competing with it and thereby violating God's will for you. We don't need to compete with others. We don't need to judge where they are on their path. We simply bring more love to every space that we can. Nothing God created can oppose your decision, as nothing God created can oppose her will. God gave your will its power, which I can only acknowledge in honor of hers. If you want to be like me, I will help you, knowing that we are alike. If you want to be different, I will wait until you change your mind. I love this line. If you want to be like me, I will help you, knowing that we are alike. If you want to be different, I will wait until you change your mind. I can teach you, but only you can choose to listen to my teaching. How else can it be if God's kingdom is freedom? Freedom cannot be learned by tyranny of any kind, and the perfect equality of all God's children cannot be recognized through the dominion of one mind over another. God's children are equal in will, all being the will of the Father. This is the only lesson I came to teach. So, Jesus came to teach us only this, that we can't force things onto others. It will never be in any way, it will not be learned in a tyrannical way, if that's the word, because we are all equal no matter what. If your will were not mine, it would not be our Father's. This would mean if you have imprisoned yours and have not let yours be free, and have not let it be free, or yourself, you can do nothing, because of yourself, you are nothing. I am nothing without the Father, and you are nothing without me. Because by denying the Father, you deny yourself. I will always remember you, and in my remembrance of you lies your remembrance of yourself. In our remembrance of each other lies our remembrance of God. And in this remembrance lies your freedom, because your freedom is in her. Join then with me in praise of her and you whom she created. This is our gift of gratitude for her, which she will share with all her creations, to whom she gives equally whatever is acceptable to her. Because it is acceptable to her, it is a gift of freedom, which is her will for her children. By offering freedom, you will be free. Freedom is the only gift you can offer God's children, because an acknowledgement of what they are and what she is. Freedom is creation, because it is love. Whom you seek to imprison, you do not love. There it is again. We do all believe in love, but we don't believe in love only. So we imprison others. We judge others. We shame others. We attack others in our thoughts, in our words, and in action. Therefore, when you seek to imprison anyone, including yourself, you do not love her, and you cannot identify with her. When you imprison yourself, you're losing sight of your true identification with me and with the mother. Your identification with the mother and with her children, it cannot be one and not the other. If you are part of one, you must be part of the other, because they are one. The Holy Trinity is holy because it is one. If you exclude yourself from this union, you are perceiving the Holy Trinity as separated. You must be included in it, because it is in everything. Unless you take your place in it and fulfill your function as part of it, the Holy Trinity is as bereft as you are. No part of it can be imprisoned if its truth is to be known. So no part of your mind, no part of the whole sonship, no part of the universe can be whole if any part of it we imprison it in our mind. If we judge other people, we imprison them. If we judge a situation, we imprison them. No part of it can be free. So the gift of the freedom is to align your will with God's. Okay. And that was fun. That was kind of challenging to read through this and replacing all the hymns with her. I've never done it, but that was fun. It took on a different life, actually, almost. See, this is what happens when twisted minds are reading things. Okay, so maybe we can get through another section. Anybody want to ask any questions? Any thoughts?
Hey, Alex.
Yes.
Good morning. It's Luca.
Good
I
morning.
was just gonna say, I appreciated you changing the gender, coming from a female perspective. It was so different for me to even hear it in a different gender. That it's just making me realize just how gender focused we really are. I know you said it was for fun and everything like that, but it was really meaningful for me. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, because this week, see, I love speaking to people throughout the week and just having calls. And I literally have calls and I talk to hundreds of people every week. Actually, I don't know about hundreds, maybe 100 every week. And the conversations, when it comes up about God, and it often does because I directed in that direction. But there's two people this week that was like, I don't really like to refer to God. I don't really like to say he. I don't like the whole masculine energy. So even we were talking about Think and Grow Rich at one point, and somebody was like, it's so masculine and patriarchal and this and that. And I'm like, I guess this week, and it just occurred to me while I was reading that maybe I'll just change everything up to she and see how that feels. It's obviously something that was called for me to do. And thank you for acknowledging that. I'll do that more often. I'll do it back and forth. Just to confuse people. Just to confuse people a little bit more.
Well, it's kind of like it's so interesting doing this today because, there's been videos going around, they're reaction videos of little black girls watching the trailer for the new Little Mermaid coming up. And then not realizing that Little Mermaid 2022 is a black mermaid. And just watching these little girls' reactions, it just hit me really, really hard. Just how we all experience life so differently based on the meat suit, that we're basically born in.
Yeah.
And then you went ahead, you did basically something very similar, changing the gender. And boy, there's a lot of programming there for sure, based on, in color and gender and you name it. So, yeah.
For sure. And, a lot of kids don't even notice that until it is placed into their heads. So we also got to be careful of projecting that into the space of children. The cartoons and things like that, they're all different colors when we're young. They could be anything. They could be green, purple, blue. Or there's no judgment. It's just, happy. If they're singing and happy and dancing, then the kid's singing, happy and dancing. But it's only our projection, our own guilt and our own hurts and our own insecurities that we project into our kids. So we gotta be conscious. This is why we want to heal our own space and our own mind. And sometimes silence is the best space. No doubt that the African American community, a lot of trauma, a lot of stigmatisms, a lot of things that they had to endure, but by projecting it onto your children only keeps that idea fresh and bigger and real and more real. And then what you resist persists. Because then the kids grow up having a certain belief system and then making that system real for them again. Because at the end of the day, it's not a real system. That whole thing is not real. It's not the truth that, they'll grow up having people attack them and live in poverty or whatever, whatever the stigmatisms all are. That's not the truth. That's just simply an idea. And everything that we share is really an idea. So if we share it, the more we share it, the more it grows. That's the laws of ideas. The more people believe in it, the stronger the idea becomes. So if we check ourselves every moment and we come to an awareness, presence, what ideas are we growing? It's like we have two plants. One plant is a judgmental ego plant. The other one is a Holy Spirit plant. And it's all of love and acceptance and surrender and peace and trust and gratitude. And over here is all the guilt, all the judgments, all the shaming, the attacks. And if we can just be aware of which one, that's it. There is nothing else happening in every single moment besides you're either growing this plant or you're growing this plant. That's funny. I've never used this analogy before. But yeah, there's only two plants. And you're always growing one or the other. Yeah. Cool. Well, we got 5 more minutes, so I'm not going to share, and I'm not going to go into another section. But maybe we'll look at a part, maybe in Manual for Teachers. Anyone else want to share anything? Okay, so since we're talking about a lot of healing, why don't we just read section number 6 in Manual for Teachers? Okay, let me just make sure that is what I want to read. Okay, cool. So healing, and this, the Manual for Teachers is not really, it's just a manual with questions that course students often have. So number 6 is healing certain? Healing is always certain. It is impossible to let illusions be brought to truth and keep the illusions. Truth demonstrates illusions have no value. The teacher of God has seen the correction of his errors in the mind of the patient, recognizing it for what it is. Having accepted the atonement for himself, Having accepted the atonement for herself, she has also accepted it for the patient. Yet what if the patient uses sickness as a way of life, believing healing is the way to death? When this is so, a sudden healing might precipitate intense depression and a sense of loss so deep that the patient might even try to destroy herself. Having nothing to live for, she may ask for death. Healing must wait for her protection. Healing will always stand aside when it would be seen as a threat. The instant it is welcomed, it is there. Where healing has been given, it will be received. And what is time before the gifts of God? We have referred many times in the text to the storehouse of treasure laid equally for the giver and the receiver of God's gift. Not one is lost, for they can but increase. No teacher of God should feel disappointed if she has offered healing and it does not appear to have been received. It is not up to her to judge when the gift should be accepted. Let her be certain it has been received and trust that it will be accepted when it is recognized as a blessing and not as a curse. So when you give love, just trust that it will be received. As you give, so shall you receive. So as you give it, it's not up to you to decide when someone receives your gift. Okay, that's a really big one. Time is something that we get caught up in. We want instant gratification. I give you love now. You receive it now. If you don't receive it, it's an attack on me. It is not the function of God's teacher to evaluate the outcome of their gifts. It is merely their function to give them. Once they have done that, they have also given the outcome, for it is part of the gift. No one can give if she is concerned with the results of giving. That's a good one. You cannot give if you are concerned with the results of giving. That is a limitation on the gift itself, and neither the giver nor the receiver would have the gift. Trust is an essential part of giving. In fact, it is the part that makes sharing possible, the part that guarantees the giver will not lose but only gain. Who gives a gift and then remains with it to be sure it is used as the giver deems appropriate? Such is not giving, but imprisoning. Wow. So imagine, just remember all the times that you give a gift, you give a compliment, you give an acknowledgement, waiting for something in return. Did you give a gift or did you give a prison? It is the relinquishing of all concerns about the gift that makes it truly given. And it is also trust that makes true giving possible. Healing is the change of mind that the Holy Spirit in the patient's mind is seeking for her. And it is the Holy Spirit in the mind of the giver who gives the gift to her. How can it be lost? How can it be ineffectual? How can it be wasted? God's treasure house can never be empty. And if one gift is missing, it would not be full. Yet it is full, yet is its fullness guaranteed by God. What concern then can a teacher of God have about what becomes her gifts? Given by God to God. Who in this holy exchange can receive less than everything? Given by God to God. When you give a gift, think about that. It's a gift from God to God. Okay, so that was a great ending. I think let's close out with just one of these 4 lessons that just flipped over. Okay. So we will close out with lesson 241. This holy instant is salvation come. What joy there is today. It is a time of special celebration, for today holds out the instant to the darkened world where its release is set. The day has come when sorrows pass away and pain is gone. The glory of salvation draws today upon a world set free. This is the time of hope for countless millions. They will be united now as you forgive them all. For I will be forgiven by you today. We have forgiven one another now, and so we come at last to you again. Father, Mother, your child who never left returns to heaven and her home. How glad are we to have our sanity restored to us and to remember that we are all one. Lesson 241, this holy instant is salvation come. Aho. Amen. Thank you all. Thank you. You will find the recording